Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Hong Konger on the home side, half Japanese on the away side, and both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel a good number of times before. Now when it comes to the home brewery, the Hong Kong brewery, I would say that these guys are best known for the different kinds of lager beers, and they're also one of the larger by volume craft breweries here in Hong Kong, whereas the Japanese brewery is a bit better known for the different kinds of IPAs, but most notably the New England Hazies. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've had from both of these breweries before. It is a style that I know these guys can do very well, a style that I very much enjoy, and one that is enjoying a little bit of a kind of renaissance at the moment actually, a little bit of a renewed popularity almost. So needless to say, I'm really curious to see how this one's going to turn out. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching are going to enjoy this one as well. So yeah, for this review, for the home side of things, we are going to head to Wong Chuk, which is on the southern part of Hong Kong Island, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Young Master Brewery. So this particular beer is part of their collaborative brew series. It comes in at 7% ABV. It's a West Coast IPA, and this is brewed in collaboration with Uchu Brewing, who are from Hokuto in Yamanashi Prefecture in Japan, a little bit out to the west of Tokyo. So as I said earlier, both of these breweries have featured on the channel a number of times before. This is one of a number of collaboration IPAs that Young Master have released through Circle K here in Hong Kong, and you're going to see a couple of beers from this particular series appear on the channel over the next few videos. But yeah, I thought this would be a very nice place to start with this series because Uchu Brewing are one of my favourite Japanese breweries, and I love the Young Master lagers as well. But Young Master are a very solid all-round brewery in my experience. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we get on. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved in this one before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Young Master Brewery and from Uchu Brewing, and there will no doubt be more added to both of those lists at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in both the Hong Kong and the Japanese playlist, and those will be added to quite a little bit over the next little while since I am based out here in Asia now. And as always, make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very, very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Young Master first off then, since they are the home brewery in this case. So Young Master Brewery was founded back in 2013 by Rohit Dugar, who is originally from New Delhi in India. But he was working in New York in the US in the finance sector, but he moved to Hong Kong back in 2011, and he was working for Goldman Sachs over here before he decided to quit this role and found his own microbrewery. So he was joined at the brewery by the German brewer Ulrich Altbauer, who had quite an extensive experience of brewing in mainland China, and he was the master brewer for the first couple of years, but sadly he died in 2016. So the current brew team is Edwin and Brian, and they've worked for the brewery for a good number of years, and their first brewery that they had was in Ap Lei Chau, which is a little island just off the south coast of Hong Kong Island, and this facility had a 10 hectolitre brew house, and this acted as their main production until mid 2016. But they opened up a new brewery in Wong Chuk with a 40 hectolitre brew house from GA in Germany, as well as a larger barrel aging area, and they also purchased a big fodder for making sour beers, and these guys were the first brewery in Asia to have such a large fodder, and these days they're brewing in the region of 15,000 litres of beer per month, which is pretty damn impressive, although I think that figure may be a little bit too small because yeah, these guys are getting their beers out there quite a little bit just now. But they've got several tap rooms and restaurants these days as well. This includes TAP in Mongkok, the ale project. There used to be one of those up in Shunwan as well, but that's now closed. There is Second Draft at Victoria Park, which I do recommend you check out. That's probably my favourite of the Young Master venues. There's Pub 1842 in Central, which I still need to go and have a look at. They had Alvy's in Kennedy Town, which was a great little pizza restaurant. That shut down recently, unfortunately. And they also have the Guild down in Singapore, which is in the Tanjong Pagar area, which is really quite nice actually. So I went in there and had one beer, and it was pretty much quite similar to Second Draft actually, but worth checking out if you find yourself down there. But today, these guys are the largest craft brewery by volume in Hong Kong, and they're also the most decorated brewery as well. And as of April 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 270 different kinds of beer, and they now employ 20 people. So yeah, a company that has grown quite a lot since their inception. As I said, for me, the Young Master lagers are pretty damn good. So whenever I want a nice lager, this is the brewery that I check out. But they are very capable when it comes to other styles as well. The 1842 double IPA is very nice. I do need to make sure I do a sit-down review of that beer for you at some point as well, because that's something I've not done yet on the channel. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Young Master Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the Japanese side of things and Uchu Brewing. So Uchu Brewing are a little bit newer than Young Master Brewing, of course. These guys were founded back in 2017 by Masahiro Kusunose and also Rumiko Suzuki. So these guys both came from a background in agriculture, and they first encountered craft beer on the US West Coast, and they found that they loved the different personalities that each brewery had, and they wanted to bring back some of this culture to Japan. So Masahiro is the main brewer, and Rumiko mainly did the kind of marketing and business side of things, but she also takes part in the brewing and the farming side of the business too. But they actually started their farming activities back in 2009 under the name Space Farmers, and Uchu Brewing of course translates into English as space brewing. Uchu is the Japanese word for space, as in what's up there. But yeah, in 2016 they planted hops, and they now have their own hop fields right next to the brewery, and they often handpick some of the hops that go into their beers. And today they're running miso making and rice paddy workshops as well, and they're still producing a bunch of vegetables without pesticides and things like that too. So the agricultural side of the business is still quite alive. But in the early days they raised 3 million yen through crowdfunding, and they used this to build their own brewery in Hokuto in Yamanashi Prefecture, which is out to the west of Tokyo. And much of the construction of this first facility was just DIY, they did it themselves. But they sold their first beers in 2018 and then expanded the brewery a couple of years later in 2021 with a second round of crowdfunding, which raised this time over 17 million yen. But the next year in 2022 they raised a further 12 million yen, and they used this to open their first tap room, which is called Roadside Station Kobuchisawa, and this is about 15 kilometers away from the actual brewery. From what I understand, they are planning to open up a much larger brewing facility in the fairly near future, but we'll just need to see how things progress with that. But as I mentioned earlier, the name Uchu Brewing translates into English literally as space brewing, and as a result of this, most of their own beers are named after, you know, things like constellations and planets and stuff like that, different space phenomena. But as of April 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 230 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that number will no doubt continue to increase as time goes on. These guys really made their name when it came to the New England hazy IPAs, but they have done a number of very good West Coast IPAs. I've had 1 or 2 black IPAs from them as well, and they are starting to experiment a little bit with kind of smoothie sour beers actually, so I'll need to check those out the next time and make it over to Japan, which should be within the next couple of months. We'll just need to see. But yeah, that is everything I can tell you about Uchu Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the Brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. This is quite similar to what you'll find from the other beers in this series too, but you can see they've got the planet behind this one, which is obviously, or it looks like a planet or a kind of spot almost as you get on like a lens or something like that. I think it is meant to be like a sort of more astronomical phenomenon, since it's Uchu Brewing that are involved here. There is the Uchu Brewing symbol. It's not focus. The camera's not focusing on that very well. There you go. And there you can see the Young Master symbol with the characters there. Really nice little can, this one. This is a 330 milliliter can, and I bought this one at Circle K for I think 22 or 23 Hong Kong dollars. So that translates to roughly £2.30 sterling. Somewhere in the region of like 500, 600 Japanese yen for those of you watching there. And yeah, €3, $3.50 American, something like that. Tells you a little bit about the beer on the side there as well, so you guys can pause the video and have a wee look at that, but I'll read it to you just now. It says, oh, got it upside down, that's helpful, but it says, an interstellar collaboration with Uchu from Japan. Our second release among our collaborative IPA series is another bold vintage West Coast IPA emitting a bright golden hue. This beer is a supernova of Pacific Northwest hops with a collaboration of vibrant grapefruit, lime, pine, mango and guava notes, rounded out by a balanced bitterness and smooth dry finish. So yeah, So yeah, like I say, 7% West Coast IPA, this one, part of the collaborative brew series. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we get on. I'm really curious to see that. And I think this one was released actually around the time that I arrived in Hong Kong, which was October. So this beer is a couple of months old at the point of reviews. So it won't be in its absolute freshest condition, but it probably will still be pretty damn good, because West Coast IPAs can hold up pretty well actually for a wee while, and this is a 7% or 2. So yeah, before the head disappears on this one, you can see that this beer poured with about a half finger of quite a bumpy, kind of soapy head actually. Some medium-sized bubbles on the surface, a few bumpier ones the further up you go, but that head is going to fade away very quickly to just be like a little thin foamy ring around the edge of the glass or a foamy layer on the top. But you can see this beer's poured pretty much as you would expect of a West Coast IPA. I mean, it's got a lovely kind of bright yellow golden straw colour, this one. It looks very, very nice. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about those particular variables when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. But yeah, a few technical things about the West Coast IPA. West Coast IPAs tend to use all barley malt as their malt base, and they rely a lot more on early edition hopping as well, which is what gives them their deeper, danker character. They're not, kind of smooth and creamy almost as you get from the New England IPAs. These beers are a little bit more oily, a little bit more kind of bitter, and kind of more, they've just got a little bit more punch to them, I think, than the New Englands actually. So yeah, for me, the West Coast IPA can lean two ways. It can be a little bit more oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or it can be a little bit more kind of bready and biscuity, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River. And going by the colour of this one, I think this is going to be a little bit more along the lines of like a bready, biscuity sort of West Coast IPA. I might have had a little taste of this on tap at one of the Young Master bars when I first arrived here, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I think we've covered the appearance of this beer, other than that we need to say there's not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but it does look pretty nice actually, and pretty much what you'd expect from the style. So yeah, a little bit of natural haze to it as well, but I think we can go on and have a wee look at the aroma of this one then. So let's do that. So yeah, aroma wise, this is a proper old school West Coast IPA, and this is something I've really missed in recent times. You know, we've been going through the haze craze with the New England IPAs and stuff, and I've missed the more old school things like this, but aroma wise this one smells absolutely lovely. Gives you everything you'd expect in the style. A lovely kind of big, deep, dank, sort of piney resin floral character, and it also gives you like the big oily, juicy fruits and a wee bit of a kind of bready and sweet, oily malt base as well. So yeah, everything that you would want. Let's break the aroma of this beer down then and describe it a wee bit more in depth for you. We'll start with the malt base first. So the backbone of the beer, you have that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust forming the backbone of the beer. There's a little bit of woodiness coming out of this one almost. So yeah, a little bit of a kind of bright woody character coming out of the beer. And then you've got a wee bit of cracker there as well. But above that bread crust, it's all about like this kind of sweet, oily brown bread for sure. That for me is quite prominent throughout the whole aroma of the beer. The bread crust, the oily kind of brown bread. There's a wee bit of white bread coming out of this one. And then you have the kind of brown sugary notes coming out of the beer. I would say, for one of the lighter coloured West Coast IPAs, this beer certainly is a little bit more kind of pungent in its brown sugary characters. I get a little bit more of a kind of straight up caramel character out of this one, which I think is really very, very nice. So yeah, I like that. I do like that with this particular beer. So yeah, for me, you do get a little bit of a toasty caramel coming out of this one, a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing as well. So yeah, toasty caramel, McVitie's digestive biscuit, but there is that kind of oily, boozy caramel that you would associate with the West Coast IPAs. So yeah, the way everything kind of pieces together in that one, I think is really very, very nice too. The malt base in this one is properly old school, and I think everything just goes together very, very well with it. But yeah, I think that covers the malty side of the beer. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things. So, as I've explained on the channel many, many times before, when it comes to brewing IPAs, you have 3 different kinds of hoppings that you can do. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you a very deep, dank green component. And mostly bitterness actually. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. It can give you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly it's flavour and aroma that you're going to get out of that. And yeah, you've got dry hopping as well, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That contributes pretty much all flavour aroma. It's going to give you a very bright green component as well. But yeah, West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3 types of hopping, whereas New England's rely on late addition and dry hopping. And yeah, that's why the West Coast IPAs have that deeper, danker aroma basically. But in this beer, I'd be very curious to know what the hop bill in this one is, because it comes across as being quite old school and quite almost like a sea hop type beer, this one. But on that green component, you certainly have a nice little bit of earthiness for sure. So yeah, nice little bit of earthiness in there. There's not too much in the way of like pine resin in this one. I would say this beer is more like oily and floral. It's got a wee bit of a kind of spicy floral aromaticity to it. And then yeah, you've got that nice kind of grassy, yeah, you've got a nice little bit of a more kind of grassy, zesty character to this one. But as I say, in the aroma, this beer comes across as being quite yeah, I would say it comes across as being pretty oily, actually, now that you mention it. It's got quite an oily green component to it, this beer. So, yeah, that's interesting. Not too deep and dank, more oily, and it's got a wee bit of zestiness to it as well. So, yeah, on the fruity side of things, it's quite interesting for me. I get quite a little bit, I can certainly see why they would say guava. I get a little bit of like guava and melon and stuff like that out of this one. Quite a bit of limey character as well, to be honest with you. It's not really that tropical in terms of its fruity character, to be honest with you. There's maybe a little touch of mango or something like that, and a wee bit of apricot, bit of mango apricot, but I get a lot of gooseberry, a little bit of melon, certainly some lime as well. Yeah. I'd be very curious to know what hops are in this one. I mean, when it comes to melon, I always think of Styrian Wolf, which is a Slovenian hop. I very much doubt that's been used in here though, because it's, you know, that hop just doesn't really make its way out to Asia. Yeah. The fruity side of this one, it's really oily and very lovely, but yeah, I think there's a wee bit of mango and a wee bit of apricot in there for sure. Maybe a little bit of pear as well, come to think of it. What fruits were they saying on the label here? So yeah, they said lime, I got that. Mango, I got that. Guava. But yeah, as I say, I would say a little bit of like melon and gooseberry and stuff like that in this one. I would be very curious to know what hops they've used in this one, because I mean, when it comes to melon, it's Kashmir is the other one that can give you that. So yeah, I would be very, very curious to know the hop bill in this beer, but certainly more of like a kind of limey, melony, gooseberry leaning West Coast IPA, this one, just from the aroma, I would say. But as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. This one is quite interesting on the fruity side of things. Otherwise, it's pretty normal for what you'd expect for the style. So yeah, I think it's about time that we try this one then. So this is the collaborative IPA number 2 in the series from Young Master Brewery in Wong, Chuk here in Hong Kong, in collaboration with the wonderful Uchu Brewing from Hokuto, Yamanashi over in Japan. Let's get stuck into this. Slàinte, skål, cheers, kanpai. That's pretty damn good. Even though this beer is a couple of months old, it's still in really nice condition actually. It's mellowed out really nicely, big oily mouthfeel, and you can feel the bitterness just building up into the aftertaste with this one. So yeah. So yeah, for me, it's a really, really solid West Coast IPA, and definitely of the standard that I would expect from both of these breweries. Now, when it comes to the Young Master West Coast IPAs, I've always found that they're quite light and they always feel very clean, but they just have this kind of residual oiliness to them, which I do enjoy. I love an oily West Coast IPA. Uchu Brewing, I haven't had a West Coast IPA from these guys in a wee while, but they were very good at the style, I remember. So, you know, 2 breweries here that are very capable when it comes to this particular style category, and I think they've done a good job with this, so it gets a thumbs up from me for sure. But yeah, let's just try and break this beer down and describe it a wee bit more in depth for you. But this one is, you know, pretty much in line with what I would expect of a Young Master led beer, to be honest with you, within the West Coast IPA category. So let's go to the middle third of the palate then. The backbone of the beer, you have that kind of fresh white bready bread crust in the base. As you move further forward, you get a little bit of woodiness out of the beer, and then there is a little touch of cracker just sitting above that too. So you get the bread crust, a little bit of wood, and a little bit of cracker embedded in it. Above that, you start to get the brown bready notes coming out of the beer. So yeah, the brown bready notes that come out of the beer in this case are actually quite sweet and quite dense as well. They've almost got a little bit of an oiliness to them. So yeah, you've got the bread crust, the oily brown bread in there, and then you have you have a little bit of you've got the kind of white bready layer above that as well. So yeah, you've got the sweet kind of brown bready, oil, kind of more dense brown bready character in there, the white bread above that, and then yeah, you have above that you've got some really nice sort of brown sugary characters coming out of this one. It's, you know, as I say, this is a more bready and biscuity leaning West Coast IPA. It's certainly not as big and oily as some of the ones that I've had, but it's on the more oily and sweet side of that bready biscuity part of the spectrum for sure. It's kind of it's kind of like a middle road beer, this one, right in the middle of the West Coast IPA spectrum. But yeah, above the white bread you have a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity layer. You've got an oily kind of sweet caramel to this one as well. So yeah, you've got the biscuity layer, the grainy biscuity layer, a bit of a toasty brown sugar as well. So yeah, in the dead centre of your palate, you've got a straight up oily, sweet caramelly note coming out of this one. So in the dead centre of your palate, you can feel that more dense, sweet caramelly note there. That is obviously the boozy centre of the beer. But as you move a little bit further out from that, you do get a little touch of a kind of very slightly fudgy Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of note. And as I say, you move further out beyond that, you've got a bit more of a McVitie's digestive biscuity note, and then the base of that, the base of that brown sugary part of the beer is a little bit more kind of toasty, I would say. So the way everything goes together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice, and it gets a thumbs up from me. So the middle third of your palate on this one is well done, and you've got to have a good malt base for me to have a good West Coast IPA. So yeah, let's have a little look at the back third of the palate. And as I've often said, the back third of the palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But remember, sweeter flavours are going to come out further forward on the palate, the more dry and bitter flavours are going to come out further back. But yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, but the base of that back third of your palate is the bread crust, which feels a little bit drier. Teeny bit of cracker above that. You've got the brown bready layer in there, which is still quite sweet, but it's a little bit taller and lighter and more airy. You've got the white bready character that sits above that, and then you've got a little bit more of a kind of dry. Kind of biscuity character that sits above that, and then you've got all the yeasty notes that come out of the beer. So the way all of that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, the bready character, the yeasty character that's in this one that sits above that is interesting too. For me, there's a little bit of a sweeter kind of wholemeal brown bread at the centre, a bit more of a kind of crusty, rusticy white bread around the edge, and then you have a more, you have a little bit more of a, how would you say, you've got a little bit more of that kind of crackery character around the edge, but definitely the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But the malty base in this one, I think, is really quite nicely done, and as I say, it gets a thumbs up from me. Anyway, fruity, hoppy side of the beer then, green component first. In the back corners of the palate, you do get a little touch of earthiness out of this one, definitely. But as you move further forward, it's got a wee touch of herbal character to it, and then as you push further forward, it's got a little bit more floral aromaticity. Like I said, this beer, the bitterness builds the further into the aftertaste that you go, but yeah, you've got a nice kind of floral aromaticity to this one. It's not overly spicy, it's actually quite oily, but then round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy as well. So yeah, I like the way that pieces together. So yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the green component. Let's look at the front third of your palate in this beer. But I'm finding this beer gets more sweet and more oily the more that you drink of it. I really like this, actually. I do wish that this was a 440 rather than a 330 can, but this is how they do this series. Anyway, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got the kind of sweeter brown bread in the base, the white bread sitting on top of that, and then the base of that front third of your palate, of course, you've got the kind of bread crusty notes in there, the cracker, sweet brown bread, the white bread, and then you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. They say on the can they get grapefruit out of this. I can see maybe at the back of that front third of your palate there's a little touch of it. I'm wondering if there's a bit of cascade in this the more that I drink of it, because it has a little bit of this almost like sultana-y datey sort of thing that you can get from Cascade, and the wee bit of grapefruit. So, you know, Cascade in this beer would not surprise me, to be honest with you. So yeah, the back 30 palate, there's a little, the back of that front 30 palate, sorry, that oily bubble where the fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. At the back of that front 30 palate, there is a little touch of grapefruit in there. As you move further forward, there, oily pear, sultana type notes, and maybe a little bit of mango as well, but not too much. And then yeah, as you move into the front half of that front third of your tongue, I think the beer has got a sort of melony, gooseberry, limey type character to it. And as I say, I'd be very, very curious to know what hops have been used in this one. You know, Cashmere is one that springs to mind that would give you these kind of flavours. Cashmere, Cascade, and, you know, Equinaut or Motueka would be the ones that would give you the lime. Centennial is going to give you a bit of lemon, but yeah, it's more limey, this beer, than lemon, I would say. It's really I mean, everything about this beer, the West Coast IPA side of it, is kind of as you would expect, to be honest, and it does remind me a little bit of the 1842 from Young Master, just the sort of vibe of the beer and the drinkability and things. But the fruity side of this is quite unique, and that's what makes it stand out a wee bit. I'd love to know what hops, pardon me, went into this one. So yeah, I think that's fair. A little touch of grapefruit, pear, sultana, bit of mango, lime, yeah, wee bit of lime, gooseberry, and yeah, a bit of melon actually as well, I would say melon. So yeah, all in all, quite a unique fruity character to this beer, but very, very nice, I have to say. Yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour. Let's round off the review with just a wee look at the mouthfeel then. For me, mouthfeel wise, this beer's kind of top end of mid-body, bottom end of full body. For a 7%er, it's got a lovely big thick body to it. Carbonation is very, very smooth, quite an oily beer, quite slick, I think is a good way to describe this one as well. IBU wise, this beer is quite high in IBUs. At the point of drinking, I think some of the IBUs have dropped off a little bit because of the age of the beer. But yeah, I think this is a big sort of 80, 90 IBU West Coast IPA, something like that, which is good. That's what you want. But remember, the more of these big bitter beers you drink, the less sensitive to the bitterness you're going to become. So yeah, the malt base in this one, as I say, a little bit dry underneath, smooth in the middle, big oily and sweet on top. Lovely green component in this one, quite floral and quite oily, I would say as well. And the fruity character is very unique. It's quite a citrusy leaning West Coast IPA, this one, but certainly one of the more oily West Coast IPAs I've had on the bready, biscuity end of the spectrum. But yeah, I think it's been pretty nice, this one, I have to say. I think everything goes together very, very nicely in this beer, so big thumbs up from me. Yeah, let's leave it there. So this one is number 2 in the collaborative series from Young Master Brewing and Wong here in Hong Kong, in collaboration with Uchu Brewing from Hokuto in Yamanashi Prefecture in Japan. 7% West Coast IPA, really, really nicely done beer, which is what we would expect from both of these breweries. So yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from both of these breweries as well, and we will no doubt return to them again at some point in the very near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers, and see you guys in the next one. Ciao just now.